share my knowledge and my expertise with you. It's an awesome opportunity. Let's give Reza a big hand. And even though we're a small number, you know what? It's a wonderful opportunity for us to network and to have a casual conversation together. I so appreciate you being here. Give yourselves a big hand. This is really what it's all about. And as Reza talked about, Toronto LinkedIn has provided this forum and an opportunity for us to get together and to learn from each other. And so today I wanted to talk to you about successful communication. Now when I say communication, what comes to mind? What for you does communication mean? Any thoughts? Feel free to jump in.
Talking to people.
Talking to people.
Getting your point across.
Getting your point across, that's a good point, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Emails.
Email? Yeah, absolutely.
Information.
Pardon?
Information.
Information, absolutely. And I want to share a quote with you from Rollo May, and he says, communication is about community. It's about understanding. It's about intimacy, and it's about mutual valuing. When you think of communication, can you see where community comes in? Anybody? Community is actually in that word. It's not completely there. But the idea behind it is it's a two-way process. And so in order for it to be successful, it has to be something that is open. Very often in the process of communicating, we're blocked, because we're either too passive or we're aggressive. And so we either shut down or we blow up. And what we do in that process is that we do not allow for openness. And so in order for communication to be successful, it must allow for flow. It must be open. And then the other piece is mutual respect. When I respect you, when I respect myself, I can respect you. And so in the process of communicating with you, I can demonstrate that. So mutual respect, and what was the other piece I mentioned? Let's see if you're paying attention. There are two parts I mentioned. Rollo May talked about community, but I mentioned that there is mutual respect and respecting yourself. There is this flow. There is a flow, so it's providing openness. It's getting away from the block related to communication. And one of the things that I realize about communication is that in order for it to be a two-way process, it must involve me, it must involve you. So I'm talking about you and you and you and all of you here today. What is it about you that would allow for that process to flow? Anybody has any thoughts on that? In order for communication to flow, it must involve you. I'm going to share a story with you about a father and a 6-year-old son. This little boy was so intent on playing with Dad every evening after work. And Dad would normally come home and he would spend time sharing with his son because he really loved him and wanted to give him attention. This particular day, Dad came home and he didn't have time to spend with him. He was a salesman and he'd had a very, very rough day. And so he told his son, son, I can't play with you right now. I really need to relax. But his son was relentless and he just kept going, Dad, I want to play with you. I want to play with you. And so the dad did something that he thought was ingenious in order to get his son to go off and play by himself or just distract him for a short period of time until Dad could get a chance to unwind. He tore out a magazine page, and on that page was a map. And he tore it into little bits, and he gave it to his little 6-year-old Johnny, and he said, Johnny, go off and put this map together. And when you've put the map together, then you and I can play. So what do you think happened in that process? Anybody has any thoughts? Maybe you've heard this story before. Anybody has any thoughts? Father thought it was going to be a long time before Johnny came back. How long do you think it took Johnny to come back?
10 minutes.
Probably a little less than 10 minutes. That's a good point. He finished up within a minute or two, and the dad was like, how did you finish this so quickly? He was very stunned that Johnny was actually able to do this so quickly. And he said, how did you do it so quickly? He was very surprised. And Johnny said to him, Dad, the map was very difficult. But he said, when I looked on the back of the page, there was a man there. And once I put the man together, guess what? Come on, I want to hear you. Yes, Raya?
The map was together.
The map was together. And the same thing is true of you and me. Once we get our act together, then we're able to do what? We're able to communicate more successfully. We're able to have the better relationship. We're able to have a more successful situation in our jobs. There's some of us who might be looking for a promotion, but we may not feel confident enough to go for it. So once we get our act together, then all of the other pieces fall into place. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that in terms of how we can actually get our act together. So we're communicating. And one of the things that I know in terms of my own process, where I've come from in terms of communication, is that I didn't know how to communicate very well as a child growing up. I grew up with a parent who was very aggressive and basically put me in my place. So I became very compliant, very quiet. I had no clue that I could speak up for myself. How many of you know you have rights? Let me see your hands. Yeah. Anybody want to share what they think their rights are? What are some of the rights that you know that you've got?
Do as we see fit within the law.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I talk about rights, I'm not necessarily talking about human rights, I'm talking about assertive rights. And for people who hear, when I say assertive, I'm not talking aggressive. There's a very fine line, and the fine line is there's mutual respect when we're assertive. When we're aggressive, very often we are overbearing and we're not respectful of the other person. So my talk with you today is really about assertion and assertive communication and mutual respect. So the first thing is to recognize that you have rights. You have the right to be treated with respect. And whether that's from your child, your partner, your boss, whomever, you have the right to be treated with respect. How many people know they have the right to say no? Yeah? Yeah. How many people feel comfortable to say no? Yeah, it's a challenge. And I know for myself, I was taught to be nice and I was taught to comply and to do what people wanted. So that was a very difficult one for me to do. So the other one that I wanted to share with you is that you have the right to express your feelings and opinion. How many people feel comfortable expressing their opinion and their feelings? That may sometimes be a challenge for us. Not always easy. I was challenged with that a lot because I did not learn that. I was not taught to do that. As a matter of fact, I was forced not to speak up for my right. So it was very important for me to actually begin to develop that process of speaking and expressing my feelings. So having said that, the other piece to you getting yourself together in terms of successful communication is, what was the first point that I made? Recognizing your human rights. Come on, you guys, I need you to perk up a little bit. Recognize your assertive rights. The other thing is, I want you to think